Hello, this is Kelly Rogers, and I would like to introduce to you today a very momentous occasion on this 27th day of the 12th month of the year 2011. And what I have for you is a fantastic opportunity to see the first ever sit-down comedian straight from the balmy bayous of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And here today, Dr. Charlie Rayburn, pediatrician extraordinaire, storytelling magician, would like to share some things with you about his life.
Kelly, thank you so much for having me here on your show tonight. But I tell you what, Kelly, life is full of surprises.
Yeah, it is.
And I've been raised up in North Baton Rouge, and as we come up, there was many opportunities to excel, and a lot of them was telling jokes and telling the experiences, because sometimes the experiences are more funnier than joke. You take like today, I was on the way over here, and I stopped by to see a friend of mine, and he was in the house arguing with his wife, or discussing with his wife. And he had just come home from church, and he said, told his wife, he said, listen, I am never going back to that church again, never. And she said, why? He said, I'll tell you two reasons. She says, I don't like them, and they don't like me. It's just like that. And she said, but honey, you've got to go back to the church. Why? He said, why do I have to go back? She said, two reasons. First, you're a Christian. And secondly, you're their pastor.
Pastor's got to go preach, huh?
and I had some friends, and his name was Mr. Cobb.
Mr. Cobb.
C-O-B-B. And her name was Miss Corn. And they married. And pretty soon they had a little nubbin, and they named him Nib. And they wrapped him in silk and put him in a crib. And when people would come by and look at that baby, they'd say, oh, shucks. And some people say that this is the corniest joke they've ever heard. And so what happened is that these preachers were at a meeting, and there was a priest, a rabbi, an Episcopalian preacher, and a Pentecostal preacher. And he says, look, they were arguing about when life started. And the Pentecostal preacher said, listen, life starts at the moment of conception. And the Episcopalian said, nay, brethren. I was better said, nay, brethren.
Nay, brethren.
Ye are all wrong. Life begins at the moment the heart starts beating. And the Episcopalian said, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Life begins when the baby's born. And the rabbi said, no, brethren, you're wrong. Y'all have it all wrong. Life begins when the last child leaves home. And the dog dies.
When the kids leave. Is that right, Mom?
No.
And so what happened is my brother Wiley was coming out on North Baton Rouge on the road, Greenville Springs Road, where Nan and I used to court because she worked out at a hospital in Greenville Springs. And so he was coming along, and here come this EMT ambulance around, hit the car. And as he come around the car and turned, you know how these ambulances with the rear doors will open, and then the what do you call it?
Like stretcher?
The stretcher with wheels. As it comes out of the car, it'll pop down the wheels like this. And then the ambulance went on, and then here comes this stretcher on the wheel down the road. And
Just rolling behind it?
Rolling behind it, and then my brother was behind it. And so what happened is that the stretcher came on the curb and hit the curb and I jumped up on it, just as the guy was coming out of the drugstore and had the door open. And so the stretcher, which is this corpse on it.
Corpse? There's a dead body on it?
Yeah, it was in the ambulance.
Okay.
And so it hit the curb, jumped up, and went through the door into the drugstore. And you know how the pharmacy is always back in the back. And so here comes the stretcher with the coffin on it, the corpse in it, going down the aisle to the pharmacy department, and hits the counter. And when it hits the counter, the coffin opens up, and the corpse sits up like this and says, "Do you have something to stop this coffin?" Hey, you're a good straight lady. You're a good straight lady.
I have to be.
Look, what happened is, you know, there's so funny things happen. We had this guy that was a wealthy man, and he had never given 1 cent to the church. And he was about 80 years old. Nobody was afraid to talk to him because he had a lot of money, and they figured sooner or later he'd get as much to church. I don't know. But nobody wanted to go talk to him about his tithing.
It's an awkward topic.
Awkward, yeah. So I said, look, I guess I'll do it. And so I went by and talked to him. I said, Mr. Jones, look at this. Every Sunday you're in church. You listen to the music, you listen to the hymns, you listen to the preaching. On Wednesday you go to after supper, you have Bible study. On Thursday you have socials that you go to. And never in the last 28 years have you given any money to the church. We need an offering. He got mad. Oh yeah, man, he been mad.
Really?
Furious. Oh yeah.
At you?
Yeah, me. And the church, everybody.
Wow.
He says, listen, how many times do I have to explain to you people? You know my wife. She's diabetic, in a wheelchair, needs insulin twice a day. You know her brother, that my brother-in-law, alcoholic, in rehab. You know that situation. You know that my son-in-law, my son, nursing home, both legs amputated. You know what that costs, don't you? He said, if I don't give them any money, why should I give the church money?
He's all kinds of stingy.
Marriage is peculiar because it's sort of, it gives you a lineage when you have your children. And so we were wondering one time about the similarities or the differences between the Prince of Wales, a bald-headed man, an orphan child, and a baby gorilla.
Prince of Wales,
Orphan child, baby gorilla, and a bald-headed man.
bald-headed man. What's...
Well, you know that the Prince of Wales is the heir apparent. And you know that an orphan child has nary apparent. And you know that the bald-headed man has no hair apparent, and the baby gorilla has a hairy apparent.
That's true. It's very true. I like that one.
You like that one?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, we had last Christmas at the Kid Meds, my nurses wanted to take off Christmas Eve. We give them off Christmas. You know, why should we give them off Christmas Eve? But they kept on haranguing us. And they said, look, I said, okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We will do this. If you girls get in there and see all the patients by noon, you can go home. Well, they got in there and come around noontime and still had 10 or 15 patients. And so the nurse came to me and said, Dr. what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I said, look,